Hi and welcome to Lois and Morgana Davidson Art. It's Lois here, and today I'm going to be showing you how I painted this line and wash landscape with an old barn and some fields. The sky is quite atmospheric, it's fairly cloudy. I'm seeing this scene as late autumn, early winter, and I'll be using a limited palette as usual, and I'll be using Payne's Grey, Raw Sienna, Burnt Sienna and Sepia for this painting. This is the reference photograph from Pixabay that I've been inspired by. I shall leave a link, if I remember, in the description below. So the first thing I did was to pencil in a simplified version of the scene, just drawing it in roughly so that I've got a good guide for my line work. The line work takes a little while. I'm using waterproof Faber Castell artist pip pens to do the outline and then put in some shading as well. So I'm creating the outline and I'm creating some texture. I'm also creating my darkest darks. The unpainted paper and the palest washes will then give me my light values, and when I come to paint, then the paint will provide the mid values and a few of the darker, richer colours. Here's the finished line work. There will be a copy of this line work over on Patreon for anyone that's interested in downloading it to refer to or trace. I'm going to paint using the wet in wet method, so I'm going to wet the paper all over, all sort of just leaving a few gaps of dry paper, and this will give me some soft and hard edges because I like to mix things up a bit when I'm painting and get a good variety of both. And then I shall gradually build up the scene using my limited palette. The sky I will paint just using raw sienna and Payne's Grey, and then continue painting the land with those colours along with sepia and burnt sienna. So that's the first layer finished. I now need to leave that to dry completely. So once that's dry, then I'll come in and add some crisper detail and some darker darks using the wet paint on dry paper method. So I'll paint some raw sienna across the distant field just to keep it nice and bright, and slowly build up a little bit more detail and stronger tones here and there. So just a few finishing touches, and I think I've got the scene just about finished. But what I'm going to do in a minute is remove the tape, and once I've removed the tape I can check and see how it looks, because as soon as I see it with a clean wiped border, it's like looking at it with fresh eyes, and I can see whether it's balanced and whether it needs anything else. So just before I remove the tape, I'm just going to darken up those trees just on the edge of the barn, because that will push the barn forward a little bit. When you remove masking tape from a painting, try to remember to always pull it away from the painting, because occasionally masking tape can tear can tear the paper, and if you pull it in the direction away from the painting, if it was to tear, then you won't tear into your painting, you'll tear away, and so the painting itself will be safe. And I think I just need to darken up the barn a little bit so it's in the shadow of that tree. And then once I've done that, I'm going to mix up a little bit of white gouache with some raw sienna and paint in some lighter branches in the tree, the little tree that's just in front of the barn, and the one on the right. And I'll probably put some lighter branches as well, just a few highlights into the larger tree. And hopefully that should just stand out quite nicely against the dark of the barn. So with a combination of using my small calligraphy brush and my rigger brush, I've just painted those highlights over the darker parts of the barn in places with my white gouache that's just been sort of knocked back by my raw sienna a little bit. And I think those highlights are quite subtle, but I think they work really nicely just to bring the painting together. When I've finished doing that, I think one more thing I'm going to do, and I'll zoom you in a little bit more so that you can see what I'm doing, hopefully, if my hand doesn't cover it. I'm going back over some of my line work on my main tree and in a few places with my fine liner, and I'm just going to pull out a few branches sort of beyond the canopy that I've painted, just so that they kind of extend up into the tree, into the sky rather, a little bit more. And I think those finishing touches will just help give the painting just that little bit extra. And then I can just put in a few shadows here and there under the eaves of the barn, and maybe some just along the grassy border below the barn, just anywhere that maybe the washes have just dulled the line work a little bit. And I'm quite pleased with that. For a fresh, loose line and wash painting, it's turned out to be quite atmospheric. I really like this technique, and I think it's a wonderful technique for beginners because it will help you to improve through practice your drawing skills as well as your painting skills. And once you get the sketch or the drawing right and the line work is in place, you've already got a lot of your values mapped out for you before you start to paint. So it can make the act of painting a lot easier. Well, I hope that was helpful and that you enjoyed it. If you did, then please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And thank you so much to everyone that supports us on Patreon. And if you want to support the channel on Patreon, then please follow the links below. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.